Yeah, there it is. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to The Reset. I am your host, Mr. Andre Clay. And on today's show, who are the reparationists, the activists, the advocates, and the organizations who fight for reparative justice? Again, who are the reparationists, the activists, the advocates, and the organizations who fight for reparative justice? Today's show will be a special call-in show. That number will be 708-414-0849. Again, that's 708-414-0849. And with that, let us begin. The movement for cities to provide reparations to African American residents for decades of racially discriminatory policies and practices has gained momentum this spring. But making good on the promise is likely to be a lengthy, complicated, and controversial process. In cities such as St. Louis, Missouri, Evanston, Illinois, Providence, Rhode Island, St. Paul, Minnesota, Asheville, North Carolina, and Berkeley, California, reparations programs have taken shape over the past year and are now moving into new phases. Assembly Bill 3121 in California established that reparations should go to descendants of persons enslaved in America, a lineage-based approach. Universities including Georgetown and Princeton Theological Seminary set up initiatives to atone for the fortifying of their endowments through the sale of our ancestors. Virginia, the state, has called on its universities to atone as well. Acknowledgement by major corporations also who profited from slavery include Lehman Brothers, Aetna Incorporated, J.P. Morgan, New York Life, and others. So, the question is, who's behind the challenges we see to government and institutions that are giving us the results we see so far? Well, that answer is the reparationist. Grassroots movements, men and women, who are in it to win it, in it for the serious fight of reparative justice for all of us who are descendants of those enslaved in America. Now, as I've been following the justice movement, I've identified basically four main movements within this fight for reparative justice. And when I break them down, I break them down into Pan-Africanist, and that would include organizations like NARC, which is the National African American Reparations Organization, and then COBRA, the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations. The next movement that I see are the ADOS movement, or American Descendants of Slavery. The next movement, United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen, headed by my man Raheem and Brother Nasheed, and the rest of the crew over there at BTP, Be the Power. And lastly, the Foundational Black Americans, spearheaded by Tariq Nasheed. Now, although each of these own distinct movements have their own approaches, however, to whom should receive reparations, and they remain divided between lineage versus race-based. And with that, I do want to share with everyone what I've broken down and learned about these movements through visiting their websites, following them, throughout the debates over the last few years, really hashing out the pathway forward to reparative justice. Now, the first organizations I want to bring up are what I consider more Pan-Africanists, and that's NARC, which stands for the National African American Reparations Commission, and then COBRA, which stands for the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America. For in COBRA, the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America is the premier mass-based coalition of organizations and individuals organized for the sole purpose of obtaining reparations for the African descendants in the United States. In COBRA's founding meeting September 26, 1987, was convened for the purpose of broadening the base of support for the long-standing reparations movement. NCOBRA has individual members, national and local organizational members, and organizational affiliates. NCOBRA has chapters, members, affiliates, and supporters throughout the U.S. and in Africa, Europe, Central and South America, and the Caribbean. NCOBRA is directed nationally by a board of directors. NCOBRA's campaigns and work is organized through 9 national commissions: the Economic Development, Human Resources, Legal Strategies, Legislation, Information and Media, Membership and Organizational Development, International Affairs, Youth and Education, and 7 standing committees: Nomination, Executive, Conference, Fund Development, ASHE, National Office and National Campaigns. NCOBRA holds an annual national membership meeting and conference, usually held the 4th week in June, to conduct the business of the coalition as well as to elevate and introduce new campaigns and strategies. Now, with NCOBRA, part of their platform decides who should get reparations. And for NCOBRA and NARC, within the broadest definition, they believe all black people of African descent in the United States should receive reparations in the form of changes in or elimination of laws and policies that allow them to be treated differently and less well than white people. For example, ending racial profiling and discrimination in the provision of health care, providing scholarship and community development funds for black people of African descent, and supporting processes of self-determination will not only benefit descendants of enslaved Africans, but all African descendant peoples in the United States who, because of their color, are victims of the vestiges of slavery. This is similar to Rosewood, Florida reparations package, where some forms of reparations were provided only to persons who descended from those who were injured, died, and lost their homes, and other forms were made available to all black people of African descent in Florida. Now, when it comes to NARC, NARC is the National African American Reparations Commission. They are responsible for most of the language that we see in Bill H.R. 40. What is H.R. 40? This bill establishes the commission to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans. The commission shall examine slavery and discrimination in the colonies and the U.S. from 1619 to the present and recommend appropriate remedies. Now, the sponsorship for this bill after Senator Conyers passed away has been Representative Sheila Jackson Lee. On the Senate side, Senator Cory Booker has spearheaded Senate Bill 1083 as the Senate measure for reparations. There's been a lot of controversy around the language surrounding H.R. 40, and there has been big push from those within the reparations movement to change some of the language, especially so that it is more distinctive in identifying exactly who receives those reparative justice claims. Upon receipt, the majority of black folks I know prefer for it to go to descendants of those enslaved people. Next movement that I'm familiar with is the ADOS Advocacy Foundation. Founders of this political organization are activists Antonio Moore and Yvette Carnell. Now, I remember watching their videos many, many years ago, and through their political education, that's when I started to become more interested in the reparative justice venture that we're all participating in. Now, with ADOS, in their mission statement, the American Descendants of Slavery is a grassroots organization that arose in response to a national landscape rife with yawning racialized gaps. With an eye toward the origins of these asymmetrical outcomes located in the institution of slavery, our organization prioritizes reparations for the descendants of chattel slavery in the United States of America. Ours is an experience defined by the unique, shared costs of multi-generational plunder, and as we stand in the shoes of our ancestors, we insist upon a specific group designation as essential to this undertaking. Now, the ADOS Advocacy Foundation was the first, if I remember, first movement for reparations to gain national attention. ADOS and its then chapters were responsible for the forcing of each of the Democratic presidential candidates to adopt some form of reparations plan as a part of their platforms. That's something that we had never seen before. I remember when Yvette and Tone got the chance to interview Marianne Williamson, who was the first candidate, I remember, to introduce reparations on the main stage. And like I said, subsequently afterwards, each of the candidates came forth with their own versions of reparative justice, none of which had much meat to the bones. None of them which those of us who really understand, what's at stake took those measures seriously, but they were forced to mention this, to bring this up as a subject during that presidential primary debate. Now, the next movement that I'm familiar with is the FBA, or Foundational Black Americans. Founder of the Foundational Black Americans is Mr. Tariq Nasheed. And they are a non-immigrant black person, as they define, who descend from enslaved persons in America. Foundational Black Americans usually have lineages to Africa and black indigenous people of North America. Oftentimes on Twitter Spaces and throughout the internet, you will find some of those who attach themselves to the FBA movement exclaim that I'm not an immigrant to the U.S. I'm a foundational Black American. Now, among those within this movement include the indigenous Black Americans, or as some call the Aboriginals. Those who spearhead that movement are fellas like Dane Calloway, Aboriginal Power, etc. Now, foundational Black Americans do not believe most of the enslaved blacks were of African descent. As a matter of fact, they believe that the majority of those who were enslaved were actually indigenous to this land. However, records tend to debunk this claim made by them. However, they are a B1 or Black First movement, and they are serious about seeking reparative justice for all of us. Next movement that I have for you guys, just a moment. There we go. The United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen. This movement right here, started by my brothers on the BTP podcast, Brother Naheem, Brother Ali, Brother Supreme, Logic Supreme, Brother Josh, Brother Grimm. These gentlemen have really been very, very on top of it as far as the political education and their advocacy for reparations, which also include the descendants of Black freedmen who were enslaved by native Indians of the 5 civilized tribes. Brother Naheem on the BTP Facebook page writes, "Reparations for descendants of freedmen is a part of our political fight. In fact, it is the primary aspect of our political fight. We all need to be involved in this fight, from the hood to the college campuses, the music and entertainment industry to the boardrooms. Our people and sympathizers must step up. The power is in our hand." Now again, with the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen, their approach to reparative justice lies in bringing back the Freedmen's Bureau. What do you ask is the Freedmen's Bureau? The Freedmen's Bureau, which also is known as the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands, also known as the Freedmen's Bureau, was established in the War Department by an act of Congress on March 3, 1865. The Bureau was responsible for the supervision and management of all matters relating to the refugees and freedmen and lands abandoned or seized during the Civil War, duties previously shared by military commanders and U.S. Treasury Department officials. In May 1865, President Andrew Johnson appointed Major General Oliver Otis Howard as commissioner of the Freedmen's Bureau. Howard's headquarters were in Washington, D.C., but assistant commissioners, sub-assistant commissioners, and agents conducted the Bureau's daily operations in the former Confederate states, the border states, and the District of Columbia. But as we know, according to history, the Freedmen's Bank went bankrupt thanks to robbing by the government and other businessmen. Since then, blacks, our emancipated ancestors, were left to go back to the same plantations they were freed from and become sharecroppers. But the Freedmen's Bureau was set up as a form of protection also for our emancipated ancestors. And this for sure is one of the initiatives that the United Sons of Daughters of Freedmen do indeed hope to bring back and establish as we seek reparative justice in the United States. Now, with these four movements, as I stated before, there is a division among them. When it comes to it, it's a matter of lineage versus race. And as we see with the ADOS and the United States Freedmen, they are a more lineage-based movement. Whereas NARC and NCOBRA and the Foundational Black Americans, they tend to be more race-based. And thing about it is, how does everyone else feel about that? What does everyone else think about that? Should upon receipt of reparations on the state and federal level, should they go to all blacks, or should they just go to those of us who are descendants of our ancestors in chattel slavery? That is a debate that continues to happen, but I do think I see it weighing more on the lineage side of things, and that's where I think it should be. If anyone has any calls, any questions, feel free. Leave a comment. Give us a call, 708-414-0849. Again, that's 708-414-0849. Now, there are others who are fighting just as hard as these organizations to make sure that we have reparative justice in this country. And there's a list of some of the other folks that I'm aware of. And I'm hoping that each of you who are watching today will take the time to Google these men and women, Google their efforts, and learn more about their platforms and their ideas for reparative justice. Now, here in Chicago, we have of the Chicago Freedmen, we have my man Marlon Watson, my girl Cynthia McDonald, and my man Arthur Ward. I've been familiar with these three, watching them in different podcasts, really laying down good political information and education for all of us. Please do search these people, learn about who they are, and become abreast on all of the education that they have to provide for all of us. Next is Dr. William Sandy Darity Jr. and A. Kirsten Mullen, his wife. They wrote a great book that I've been able to read for myself. It's called From Here to Equality. They were instrumental in the beginning of the ADOS Foundation's formulation and providing a lot of input as to the direction and the data that needed to be crunched for them to create a good claim for reparative justice for descendants of chattel slavery. Also, we do have people running for political office. How else are we going to get reparations, at least on the federal level, if we are not electing those who are sensitive and promote the idea of reparations? First off, we have Miss Tamara Johnson Shealy. Now, she's running for Senate in Georgia. I want to say this may be her third or fourth time running, but I became familiar with her last year, and I remember seeing her campaign video. If you guys ever get a chance, please Google Tamara Johnson Shealy and donate to her campaign, because she's running again, and she could sure use your support. Next is Mr. Marcel Dixon. He's running for Senate in North Carolina and against Mr. Jim Clyburn. And Marcel Dixon, that man knows his stuff. I've watched Marcel in many, many, many debates. He is a more lineage-based reparationist. He is also of the Gullah Geechee ancestry. And so, they are warriors, man. So he's out there fighting real hard, grassroots movements that he's started, and gained a lot of popularity, I've seen online. And I'm hoping that folks will come out, learn more about him, donate to his campaign, because, again, he's going up against Jim Clyburn, who's got millions of dollars to get himself reelected. And we have not seen very many positive results with Mr. Clyburn being in office. So you might want to take a look at Mr. Dixon. Next up, we have the Reverend William Somerville running for Congress in California. I know the least about him, but I wanted to definitely bring forth three folks I know who are running for political office to help make reparative justice a reality for us all here in the United States. Other favorable mentions I have to bring up are Miss Friday Jones. I've witnessed her many times in different podcasts, speaking on the subject of reparations. Super knowledgeable, super smart. You got to check her out. Please Google her. Also, Chris Lodgins. He is another brother that I've had a chance to witness on panel discussions about reparations. Very intelligent brother, straight up on it. And also Miss Angela Nirvana. I have seen Angela on many podcasts, and I remember when she used to be a supporter of the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, but since then she's a freedman. She's doing her thing, and I got a chance to share one of her posts, and she reached out to me and asked if I would also share a post about an upcoming event. And I do encourage any of you who are interested in checking out one of these panel discussions about reparations. And on this one right here, dated for May 19th through the 21st, 2020, reparations. What does the Bible say? This event will be an online event, Zoom, at the Universal Truth Center. There will be a $50 digital recording, an admission fee of $50. With that, you will get a digital recording included. I will curate this list to share on this page as soon as I get a chance. But ladies and gentlemen, please, 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 when you get a chance, check this out. Check this event out. It should be very educational for all, very enlightening for all. And as we go forward in this push for reparations, as we see, things are happening on the local and state level. These efforts, these victories are setting a precedence for the upcoming federal fight for reparative justice. And this is what's going to be needed. Now, with that being said, if anyone has any questions or comments they'd like to leave, please feel free to do so. That number will be 708-414-0849. Again, that's 708-414-0849. There's Monica. Lineage for sure. Absolutely, Monica. Lineage-based reparations versus race-based it definitely makes a greater distinction. As I reported in my last episode of the Reset, race-based tends to include too many black immigrants, whether they be from Africa, the motherland, or the Caribbean, anywhere across the diaspora, who may voluntarily come here. Now, this is not to say that upon them being here, that their experiences with racism, with white supremacy, are not valid. Of course they are. However, they do not share the same history as those of us who are in America and have always lived in America, who have never immigrated to another country. They just don't share the same history and lineage that we do. And it is our fight here that is important to us. Now, are Jamaicans owe reparations? Absolutely. But there is an international effort for reparative justice for those who are descendants of slaves in Jamaica. That is a part of what CARICON is about. I would encourage all of my brothers and sisters across the diaspora to join in the international movement for reparations, because each of these movements are seeking reparative justice for each of the respective governments that allowed it, that profited from it. Now, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I do hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I hope that you walk away with a little bit of insight as to who and what these movements are all about. Please lend them your support. And with that being said, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Good night.